Today, I was thinking that we could go through Agile and Scrum. So we are not going to do a kind of a deep dive of Agile and Scrum, but mainly I will try to explain you what are the basic principles behind this whole Agile movement and how does Scrum really as being one of the frameworks for Agile development is built. So let me say something about the contents for the day. So you should be able to, I will try to go through some history that you get the perspective. So what's really behind all this movement that software engineering and software development, software business has turned to Agile. There were some compelling reasons why that happened. And then we'll go through the Agile Manifesto, which relates the foundation of Scrum's Agile's principles. And in that manifesto, there's an amendment like how these principles are stated. So there's 12 of them. So we'll go through what they are. And then we move into Scrum. Have some discussion on that. What are the roles and events and the artifacts? The artifacts being kind of objects or what you could something that is human made. So what are the artifacts in Scrum? Then we'll go to run through the framework itself. So how the Scrum really works in practice. So in its basic form. And then we'll go through some summary slides and then Q&A. And I'll give you in the very end some hints what you can read to get more familiar with Scrum. So like I mentioned, 1 hour isn't really enough to do any deep dive on Agile and Scrum, but probably there's some links there that you may find interesting if you want to learn more. Okay, so a little bit of me. So my name is Hannu Törmänen. I work at Ericsson Finland. There's some background of me from my professional life. So I graduated from the University of Oulu from electrical engineering in the beginning of the 1990s, and then I used to thought that okay, because Nokia was very hot on those days, so I go work for Nokia, and that's my whole career. Well, it didn't actually turn that way. I went to work with Nokia. I stayed for 3 years, not 40 years. So then I made a career move. I moved to a company in Espoo called Martis, which was a kind of a competitor to Nokia in those days, in the 1990s. I worked there. The company changed its name a couple of times from Martis to Telabs and Telabs to Corient. Basically, it was the same company where I spent something like 21 years. And in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the kind of devices I was doing software for. So they were just communications equipment, more or less meant for transmission of mobile data and phone calls between base stations and radio network controllers at that time in 2G or 3G environments. So yeah, from Coriant, I left for a company called Efficode, which is a DevOps company. Stayed there as a project manager and agile coach for 1.5 years, and before joining Ericsson. So that's where I am at the moment, working there as a coach for teams and the whole community in Jorvaskirkkonummi. So my hobbies, I do a little bit of exercise and try to learn some guitar playing. Now mostly acoustic and in fingerstyle, but it's a hard thing to do. So hopefully I will graduate one day. So let's see how it goes. Okay, yeah. So a little bit of context in this Agile and Scrum, what they are all about. So how they fit in this kind of a how to say more organically. So Agile and Scrum are really based on two building blocks, which you can see in this picture. The bottom kind of a slide is like organizational learning. So that's of course one topic of its own, how organizations learn and adapt and pivot and so forth, go find new ways to operate more, be more effective, how they do learn from their mistakes and so forth. It has been said that, okay, the better the organizations are in learning and feedback culture and being adaptive, they are more successful. And if they somehow omit those learnings, they don't really succeed in the long term. Apart from that organizational learning, there comes lean thinking kind of a domain that you could see that, okay, which are the ways that we could be more effective, which are the ways that we could save some money on doing our operations, how can we provide more value for our customers and so forth. Again, this is a very big topic on its own, and there are lots of books and training related to lean thinking. You could imagine like a factory where this is the thing that they are working on, more kind of a dominating thinking pattern, and there's lots of ideas that have been taken to agile world also, which is powerful thinking in a sense that so agile is really based on lean ideas, but there are some more into that. And if you speak about Scrum or XP, which are shown here in the picture, you have these frameworks that are based on Agile and give you some kind of ideas and kind of a patterns you can use in order to fulfill this Agile thinking. So right now, and we expect it, if you go up in this pyramid, you find that, okay, Scrum and XP are more prescriptive, so they are they have the really guides and some rules that teams or development organizations should follow in order to be successful, while the bottom side of this pyramid is more like a philosophical, some laying down some basic principles that are there as a building block for this more prescriptive models. Okay, Kanban is mentioned here in the sideways. It's Kanban is pretty much originating from Lean, but that's another topic of its own, and today I don't think we have time to go through the Kanban itself. That could be one of these other sessions in the future. All right, so what's the background then? So why did we go to Agile? And what are the things behind it? So the thing in the 1990s was that, okay, industry had some very big problems in delivering software products or services. And that really, they were the big projects that we had during these days in the software industry were pretty large system-wide projects, and we are working on that. Business need, it may have taken something like several years in order to build this project for our customers, and there have been a lot of changes in 3 years, both in technology and the need of the customer, how they could really run their business forward. So the thing was that, okay, businesses were fast even 25 years ago. They are even faster today. But the conclusion from that eventually was that, okay, we can't really be that slow. So there's a new business need emerging since we started the project. We have 3 or 4 years project to deliver to the customer, and when it's finished, it really didn't meet the needs of the customer anymore, and everybody was unhappy. Yeah, there were a lot of delays. So these which are seen here in the slide now are quite extreme examples, like in this aerospace and defense industry, there were 20 years before the actual start of the building the software, and when it was used, and you can imagine that, okay, the world has changed a bit in 20 years, even though it was in 1960s. And yeah, the US space shuttle program is also mentioned here as a very unusual example. So maybe 20 years, it's a very long time, but in the other industries, maybe 3 years is sufficient enough. So the needs of the customer weren't met anymore. All right. Yeah. So the one problem that I always, when I worked in the communications industry, was that, okay, the most product owner and the 1990s, if you think about telecom vendors or industries that did their own hardware where they actually could run their services, and then the software development really wasn't starting until the hardware design was fixed and ready. So the software wasn't seen as a priority in many product areas and industry areas at that time. So, but even though software is a critical asset in order to for a vendor or a manufacturer to make them known in the competitive environment. So the software then began to be more important along the years, and so also more complicated, which leads to these long delivery times like 3 years and 5 years and even 20 years or so. Yeah, but that was the importance of software was rising, but the events to many companies but the results were not that great. So and that was really the case, then there were some wise men, mainly in the United States or North America, who then came together one one weekend in 2001 in Utah, USA, and they thought about the situation, and in that event they went through that, okay, what can we do to make software more reliable, more we can deliver it faster and so forth, and with a better quality and things like that. So they read out these 4 sentences which you see here in the green box. So let's go them through, like individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So the thing in the past was that, okay, processes were very important. All the tools that we use were really fixed, and there was no way of going through those complicated items which are kind of a given. And we want our individuals and to interact more. So we don't necessarily have to tie ourselves down to a certain process or tooling, but we can invent our own tools, our new processes that we want to follow. So that was the kind of a thing that, okay, we value this communication part of our work more, so we can get better solutions. And the second statement here, working software over comprehensive documentation. You may think this as when usually the customer communications was done by documentation in the 1990s and before. So instead, what if we could really demonstrate our software to the customer in a regular basis, and then get feedback and see that, okay, is this what we, and for the customer that we are building this software product for. And then we could get some feedback and not end the very end of the project when everything should be done according to the specifications and so forth. So the idea of showing the work lays the foundation. What can you do with the software today, and get some feedback over that. Okay, we are happy with this, but we like to change that particular thing in the product. So that would give our customers a better feeling about that they can influence on the quality and the features that we are building. Right, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So yeah, contracts. Usually, when you have a customer, you write a contract with them, so you can agree on the cost of the project and how long it takes and so forth. But customer collaboration is more important according to the Agile principles. So if there's a contract, we try to follow that as well as we can. But anyway, if we run into some issues along the way, we should be able to collaborate with the customer that, okay, hey, because software is complex, you never know what will come up and what kind of difficulties there may be, or a customer may have an issue with the product and maybe request some new things. So we can get over this burden of contract being a kind of a limiting factor for us, but we can talk to each other and find a way forward. Responding to change over following a plan. Back in the days before Agile took over, there were quite a heavy project management organization that really planned the project and tried to make up the cost and the timeline for a project to be implemented. But almost always that didn't work. So So the fourth sentence here says that, okay, we must be able to respond to any changes that we might find, because software is complex and needs will emerge over time. So being adaptive to these changes that we might face could be very helpful. But not saying that we value these things on the left-hand side more than on the right-hand side. Still, the things on the right still have value. It is important to have some tools and processes agreed among the organizations or between the customer if you want. It's important to have documentation. It's important to have good contracts and plans, but the things on the left-hand side could be more valuable. All right, so what it then means, what is this manifesto? The 4 sentences that we just saw in the green box there. All right, maybe I went through them already a bit, but individual and interactions mean that people must talk, more or less. Both the client, customers, and we in the development teams, we must talk as well and be able to establish good communication channels between each other. We would like to have minimum amount of process and tools through our empiric findings. So this is a kind of a thing that, okay, it is not possible in all industries to follow this, because if you work in the healthcare industry, for instance, our regulatory kind of things that you must follow to get your product, for instance, accepted by the authorities and so forth. But keeping this as lightweight as possible is the key here. We would like to deliver customer value by showing the progress and by creating trust. And we do that by giving demonstrations of our software, even though it's not fully ready. There may be some parts that are ready that we want the customer to react and give feedback on, so we can build a better product that meets the customer needs. Customer collaboration, okay, that would lead to a situation where we would have better products and the customer would get some benefits out of it. And also the customer would then really control what's the outcome of the whole development process that we are doing together. Responding to change. So the planning, it's important. You may have heard that planning is important, but plans itself, they are not that usable. It's important to plan things, follow them as long as you can, but if you can't anymore, then you make a new plan. So as you learn more about the process of building a product or something else, and that's important to be also transparent that, okay, we don't know anything, we know something, but we don't know everything about the project in the early stages when we are just starting. And there may be some surprises. That usually happens in software. And we try to continuously improve, a very important thing. We would like to improve our communication, our tools, our processes. We would like to be more effective and so forth. All right, so in this picture you see that, okay, what is the most important or efficient kind of a way to communicate in this well, in any case. So if you're trying to plan your communication, you should, according to Agile, you would be really welcome to use face-to-face communication as much as possible, because you have then all the important emotions also showed in this process, which is very much hidden in the other kind of conversations like phones, or the worst being maybe email discussions and so forth. So that would be very important, so we can really boost our thinking and our communications within our teams and people, but also in the eyes of the customer. So meeting the customer regularly and so forth, it's very important nowadays, because we are in this more or less this in complete lockdown, but kind of a lockdown situation. Then video is much more better than any other kind of communications if you want to really make the most use of your communications within the team or with the customer and so forth. Okay, documentation papers are quite cold documentation options that you might have. Videotapes could be much efficient, or not videotapes anymore, but maybe this YouTube or whatever kind of a system that you may use to convey documentation. All right. Okay. According to this, in the event where this Agile Manifesto was kind of created by this handful of wise guys, they also laid down some principles that the Agile community should follow, and we'll go through these. There are 12 of them, but they mostly I've spoken quite much about them already, but let's see what they really are. So our highest priority is to satisfy customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So we try to, according to Agile principles, deliver our software to customer as often as we can. And we start from very small, of course, so we can get some kind of look and feel how it looks and get some feedback early on. Okay, this is kind of when you respond to change. So if you have a changing requirements along the way, that should be not considered as a bad thing. The worst thing is that you will deliver something that is not valuable for the customer. So we try to always remember the customer's competitive advantage. Okay, if he or she trusts us to build their product, so making changes in adaptive ways, it should be welcomed and not seen as a hindsight. Okay, frequent delivery of software. So this says that, okay, you should deliver software from couple of weeks in couple of months, and do it in shorter time scale, the shortest that you can. So you can imagine that companies like Netflix or Spotify, they working in the manner that, okay, they happen, or independently from their development teams, some parts that might be useful for the whole project and benefit the customers, but they can try it out in some limited scale. For instance, if you imagine Netflix that operates globally, so you might see that, okay, some of the features that Netflix has may be available in some countries, and in some other countries they don't exist. So they will try to just learn from the new functionality they deliver, and then try to see if it's usable for global scale. Right, business and developers should work together throughout the project. So you know what's the really the most beneficial or most effective way to deal with the customer, how to create customer satisfaction within our development efforts. All right, number 5, it speaks about motivation. So you hopefully have motivated individuals in your teams and in your projects, and you give them environment and support so that they can do a good job and trust that they can do the job as well. So this is something that early on was quite hard for some leaders to accept, that okay, maybe if I let loose a bit and trust my teams, then will they be completely screwed up, or can they really perform as we have planned? This is the kind of a statements here, this number 5, that okay, could have been very hard in some organizations to accept that okay, should we just really trust our people and give them enough support to get the job done? But this is what the Agile principle is saying, that okay, by working this way, you will get more out of your teams. Okay, again, face-to-face communication is displayed here, so use it as much as possible. Working software already discussed, so we should be able to demonstrate the progress by delivering working software without bugs, without any kind of problems while using it. Very important as well. Okay, so this is about being consistent in your work, more or less. Agile processes promote sustainable development. So we should be able to work in this manner for years, and in order to deliver value constantly with good quality and so forth. So we won't be overburdened with our jobs. We see that okay, maybe this deadlines are approaching. We are working very fast and long hours, and maybe we just make some mistakes along the way. So Agile just promotes this kind of a sustainable pace of work, and which might lead to happier development teams and organizations in general, and customers can also somehow expect that they will get something from this company that they are working with. Right. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design. So often Agile being criticized that okay, there isn't really kind of an emphasis on good design and good architectures and making solutions or products which are technically excellent and good to use. So this is not according to Agile principle number 9. So we must pay attention to this. So we should not only concentrate on delivering the stuff, but also take care that okay, maybe in the future we might need something else, and it might be good time to invest into this kind of a groundwork that we must do in order to enhance our architecture, fix the very difficult problems in the software, and so on. So Agile doesn't say that you shouldn't do that. You should. Okay. very important also here is to say that, okay, what we really need is to be simple enough, but not simpler than that. So we should be take a look at how we can really avoid unnecessary work. So this comes, this principle number 10 from lean thinking, more or less, so that if the customer doesn't absolutely need a kind of feature or functionality, we should not be doing that. And really the key here is that we just build products which do what they promise, but don't do nothing extra, in the sense that what the customer is not really needing. All right, self-organization teams. This is very key as well. But these self-organization teams can really decide on the best practices and architectures and design requirements that should be there implemented by the teams by themselves. So they have the freedom to choose. Of course, you might need to coordinate with other teams and so forth, but anyway, this is the idea behind that. Okay, self-organizing teams can do the good technical choices on the product that they are building. Okay, number 12. You should continuously improve if you follow agile principles. So you should be able to do the regular kind of retrospect that what you have done so far. Is there any way that we can improve from that point to the next level? So our team can perform better, we can get more done, we don't do anything unnecessary that is not really required, and so forth, and change our behavior, making one change at a time, maybe see that if it's working or not, then if it's not working, then do something else. So experimentation here is kind of a thing here. All right, so we don't have too much time, so we haven't spoken about Scrum yet, but I try to be very brief. So maybe I'll skip this slide and go through the Scrum straight away. So if you remember the pyramid that I showed you a while ago, so Scrum is one kind of a framework which implements these agile principles, you might say that, but it gives you some kind of a framework and ground rules that you could use in order to implement those agile principles. And this is Scrum is very easy to understand, but it has been said that it's quite difficult to master in practical life, in your teams and so forth. So remember, if you work in a Scrum team, that you may have some difficulties in implementing that fully, and it takes quite a long time until you will be able to work with Scrum quite fluently, especially if you're very new to Scrum, and other people in your team are also very new to that. So some history here again. The Scrum was kind of introduced even before Agile Manifesto, so maybe we'll skip this slide, but there has been some discussions before, and some papers have been released before 2001, before Agile Manifesto. But it really took after the manifesto was kind of released in 2001. So Scrum's values are, because Scrum is a team framework, so it's all about the team, how the team interacts and works together. So it sets some ground rules on that. And here you can see the values: courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. So these are kind of laid down from the Agile principles and Agile values by themselves, and you can see here what's written, that okay, being courageous, that you open up and you have the empowerment and a right to do the good things and work on the tough issues in your teams. You should be focused on the work at hand in your Scrum team. Every sprint, everyone should contribute to the sprint and nothing else. You should be committed to do the work in a way that your team will achieve the goals as a Scrum team. You should be able to respect the other members in your team and consider them as capable and independent people as such, and being open to really to tell what we are about to do and to our stakeholders and customers. If you work directly with the customer, then you should be able to communicate with them that okay, this is the thing that they are working on right now, and we expect it to be ready by then, and so forth. And if you have any challenges, you should let them know as well that there may be some hiccups, but we are working on that. Okay, roles, events, and artifacts. So Scrum has 3 different roles defined: development team, Scrum Master, product owner. And we'll go through in this next slides all of these that you see here, but the events are sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. So this is where all the team members come together, and in these ceremonies that is defined, that are defined by Scrum, and it really lays the foundation of how Scrum really works. It works through these events, 4 events here mentioned, as we see in the next slide. And then are the artifacts. So what do we work with? So we have a kind of a product backlog, which is a kind of a list of items that we as a team should select our work items from. And out of that, we build sprint backlogs. We will take a look at that in a minute, and in the end of the sprint, we will have some kind of a new increment of our product after our sprint is over, and then we'll do the same cycle again. But let's see in this next slide how it really works. All right, so let's go through the roles first. So first we have team. So team in Scrum is a self-organized and empowered team, which usually hopefully has all the capabilities that it takes to make the project happen or get the jobs done, so to say. So it may have software engineers, test engineers as a kind of capabilities. It may have business analysts, some kind other experts, but anything basically that is required that we have a job to do as a team, and we should be able to do it as independently as possible. If we don't have any such capabilities that is needed, then we should somehow be able to manage with that and get some help somewhere in order to get the job done. All right. Then next, Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master role is kind of a coordinating role where you, as a Scrum Master, make sure that all the principles in Scrum are being followed. So all the values that we have like being open on problems and so forth should be mentioned, and Scrum Master is the one that should coach the team to live up with values and practices that Scrum tells you. Also, the Scrum Master role is kind of a role that he or she may have to deal with some external pressure on the team, that okay, maybe some stakeholders or manager or someone else could be telling that, okay, to my mind the team should be doing this, but the Scrum Master should somehow protect the team from any of such discussion and keep it outside the team, just to let the team to focus on the sprint execution and so forth. All right, product owner. So this is to my mind a quite complicated role, because it's really the knowing what the customer really wants, have the vision of the project, and tell what the vision is to the Scrum team, developers and Scrum Masters, and why we are doing this project. After all, what do we gain? What is the customer value of this project? And the project owner is quite also responsible that, okay, what needs to be priority for the team. So the product backlog is a prioritized list of the work and what should be done. And PO is really the key person to manage the product backlog. Actually, he or she is the owner of the product backlog. So telling the priorities what they are and laying them to the team as well to work with. Okay, next we go to this bottom part of the picture here. So the product backlog, as mentioned, is owned by the product owner, and he or she and then puts all the work items in the product backlog what are needed into this priority order, and communicates the product backlog to the team as well. And what happens in sprint planning actually is that, okay, we take something out of the product backlog, the highest priority items that we need to work with in our sprint. And for that to happen, we have a sprint planning event. And so the sprint planning is then telling us that, okay, what are the most important things that we should work during our sprint? And what is the goal when we get this sprint done? What is being delivered after that? And we take the most important items from the product backlog, and in the sprint planning meeting, we try to slice them smaller and put them, lay down that, okay, we must do something like this. What are the steps that we must take in order to make it happen? So we create tasks which are smaller than some, maybe one day could be a maximum appropriate size of a task, for instance. And we have the sprint planning meeting, and we come up with the sprint backlog after that sprint planning has been done. So the sprint backlog is the team's backlog, owned by the team itself, and they have to maintain that and see that the tasks that we have defined in the sprint planning are being executed. So again, we have priority here in the sprint backlog that for the task that we are working on, and the team decides who is working on which task. Okay, so the sprint. What is the sprint actually? So it's mentioned here that okay, it's a time box, 1 to 4 weeks, which is to produce a potentially deliverable product increment. So after the sprint is done, we expect that okay, we have accomplished something, and we will the customer will get some value out of it possibly. It doesn't mean that we have to release the product after each sprint, but we can decide okay, maybe it is good to release, maybe it's not good to release. But the sprint usually it takes 2 weeks, but it's really defined by the organization and even the team to decide what is the good length of the sprint. All right, we'll go to the next one. So the daily stand-up or daily scrum, or daily meeting, there are many kind of names here for this event. So this takes, as the name says, takes place daily, and we check how we are doing with our sprint. So what has been done since our earlier daily stand-up meeting. So we are beginning these daily meetings after the sprint planning has been done. So every day we meet in the same place at the same time usually, and check these questions. What has been done since the last time we met? What will be done next? What is the thing that we will be working on, each one of us in our team? Or are there any blocking issues that we might face that may have some impact that we won't be able to achieve a goal, for instance? So this is something that takes place every day during the sprint. Okay, backlog refinement, few words about this. This is not really part of Scrum by definition, but this is something that many teams have found helpful in order to plan their work and try to estimate new things for the next sprint that will follow after the current sprint. So that is some kind of a preparation event for the coming sprints. So you could estimate one sprint ahead, for instance, that okay, these are maybe the things that we will be working on during next sprint. So let's take a look at them a bit closer. All right, now we are reaching our sprint. We have probably worked for 2 weeks in our sprint if we have a sprint length of 2 weeks, and at the end of the sprint, we will have something like sprint review, and that is an event that really checks that okay, our commitment with our product owner in the team was that okay, we will work with these things and try to get them ready, and we have firm belief that we have been able to do it. We will check now whether all the things that we have done have really been done, and maybe we could show some new development and make a demonstration about the new features or new functionalities that we have done, and also stakeholders like your customer or your business people can join this event and see the achievements that you have accomplished together in your team. And also, if you show what your service or product really does today, then you can decide in that meeting and by hearing the product owner or the stakeholders or the business people that okay, maybe this is something you should work on next in coming sprints on and so forth. So you get some guidance also from outside the team. All right, so the increment could be usually it is a piece of software or having this new functionality that the team has implemented and tested and has been working on in the current sprint. So that increment could be something that we could deliver to our customers, to our service. We can launch this service to a limited number of customers, for instance, and it may or may not happen. So you may decide that, okay, this is not still bringing the value that customer is usable for customer again, who can benefit from that. But it's up to the product owners and joint effort with others to decide whether or not this could be something that we could deliver also to our customer. Okay, and the final event is take the learnings. So what went well in our current sprint? What can we do to improve in the next sprint? And this is a very important thing, that you would fulfill the Agile principle number 12, which says that, okay, you should be getting together and find ways to improve in regular intervals. So Scrum suggests that, or it tells us to meet every sprint to see the improvement options or remove some blockers or impediments from our work. And so on the cycle goes. You see here, there's after your sprint is over, the usual thing is that you will have a next sprint, and the same cycle really repeats. All right, coming back to summary, Scrum values: openness, courage, respect, focus, commitment. So you are able to speak, you are able to influence by respecting others, and you can focus on your work, and you may commit to your work. The framework here are displayed again. As said, that there are many things that you should probably read through or watch videos on them, because there's a lot of material available. For instance, YouTube is a good way to seek for more thorough training than this webinar, but I really recommend you to read or check other materials available. All right. So here's the Agile Manifesto. If you go to this Agile Manifesto homepage, you will see this, and you will see this. How many are there? Actually, there are 20 names about who have been building this manifesto and the 12 principles of Agile. Not a single woman, I guess. They are all men. Yeah. So here's some principles again, but maybe the most important thing is to have the right mindset for Agile teams, Agile development. If you work in an environment that doesn't have this mindset, but is very hierarchical and so forth, that Agile may not be the first choice for you to select as your development framework. Any Agile framework. Okay, just quickly, these principles, you will see them in the Agile Manifesto page, I believe, as well. Certainly they are found somewhere, but also in this material that will be delivered to you after the presentation. So you will find this here. Framework once again, and a little bit of homework for you guys. So if you have some time and you spend some time with these topics, then you could try to map the Agile principles to Scrum. How does Scrum implement these principles? are there other ways that they could be implemented, and is there any contradictions on these principles with Scrum? So just to play around with these principles and Scrum events, roles, and artifacts, so on. So might be a nice way to go forward. All right, I reached the end. So any Q&A?
We don't, at this moment, we don't have nothing here at the questions, but I would like to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you. This was this was actually really
for the task that we are working on.
Those were really simple, and I did even understand those. And it was presented really easy way, and it's good to you all already told, but the materials are coming to you. I will put those on the social media, and I will send these via newsletter on next week too. And even though on the Agile Manifesto there were only men, when we get more women to our industry and when we have more chances to get them up front, we will have there also women's too.
Sure,
this is
sure. Yes.
This is my encouragement words to our listeners, that if you want to keep these webinars, if you are asked to be a keynote speaker, please do attend, and please do create content like Hannu did here, because we need to see more women on our examples. And for content makers, this was useful. And one thing that I just learned from the coding is that coding is not just a coding. I made a note.
Yes.
It's communication, it's experimenting, it's communication, it's reflecting, it's communication, it's planning, it's communication, and it's learning. Am I right?
Absolutely, you're right. So of course the technical skill is important, and if you are mastering your tech, for instance, the no way that you could get wrong, but really the real working life today is based on teamwork and how to collaborate with others and so forth. So these are just things that you cannot ignore if you are planning your career in the software engineering and in industries, because there are a lot of these principles are taking place also somewhere else besides software. So in healthcare, you will see some lean principles being implemented and have been there for a number of years already. These principles just spread over, so all over the working lives and maybe our personal lives also. So maybe you will have goals and task lists for you and so forth. And how do you manage your personal life, for instance?
Yes, there's also relationships in work and in personal life. And also these tasks. I think we are ready to wrap this on, so we'll get back to you with the recording, and Hannu will send all the materials for me, and I wish you everyone excellent weekend. Have a lovely sunny weekend. Thank you. See you next time.
Just a moment here. You have also some kind of recommended reading if you want to do the deep dive on this topic. Some of the books, there are plenty of those books, but I gathered here something that I think which are very useful.
Good. Thank you. This has been always been a really asked thing. Thank you for all the trouble you have seen for this. See ya.
No issue with that. Happy to have you. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.